How do you control those who believe they're free? The answer is manipulation, not chaos, but quiet, invisible influence. The greatest power doesn't roar, it whispers. The masses crave guidance. Friends, rivals, entire systems, each can be controlled if you understand their desires, fears, and blind spots. In this video, I will teach you how to become the unseen hand. Now, you won't just lead, you'll orchestrate. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? How do you control those who believe they're free? The answer is manipulation, not chaos, but quiet, invisible influence. The greatest power doesn't roar, it whispers. The masses crave guidance. Friends, rivals, entire systems, each can be controlled if you understand their desires, fears, and blind spots. In this video, I will teach you how to become the unseen hand. You won't just lead, you'll orchestrate. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you the most fundamental truth of power. The chains that bind men most effectively are the ones they cannot see. I learned this through years of observing the great game of power in Florence, watching princes rise and fall, and understanding that true mastery lies not in forcing obedience, but in making others believe obedience was their choice all along. Think of freedom as a garden maze. The walls are there, but the wanderer believes they choose their path. They turn left or right at their pleasure, never realizing that every corridor was designed, every choice anticipated. This is how you must construct your influence. When I wrote The Prince, many misunderstood my intentions. They thought I advocated for brute force, for obvious displays of power. How primitive. The art of control is far more subtle. It begins with understanding that humans cherish nothing more than their sense of autonomy. Strip this away openly, and you create resistance. Preserve its illusion, and you can lead them anywhere. Consider how the greatest merchants of Florence operated. They never forced anyone to buy. They created desire. They understood that a man who enters a shop believing he wants something will pay twice what he would if coerced. This is your first lesson in power. Create the conditions for voluntary submission. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this art. Social media, corporate structures, even friendly gatherings, all are stages where you can practice invisible influence. When you suggest an idea, do it so naturally that others believe they thought of it themselves. When you want something done, plant the seeds so carefully that others pursue your goals as their own ambitions. But remember this crucial point. The illusion of freedom requires maintenance. You must give people genuine choices. Just ensure that all choices lead to your desired outcome. Like a skilled chess player, think 5 moves ahead. When they move their pawn, know already where your queen will be. You might ask yourself, is this not deceptive? Is this not manipulation? I ask you in return, is a parent manipulative for creating boundaries that keep their child safe? Is a teacher deceptive for structuring lessons that guide students to predetermined conclusions? Power without direction is chaos. Leadership without strategy is weakness. The true art lies in making your guidance feel like growth, your control feel like empowerment. When people thank you for letting them find their own way, while walking the exact path you designed, that is mastery. When they defend their choices passionately, unaware that you architected the options, that is power. Remember, the greatest cage is the one whose bars are invisible, whose limits feel like horizons. Master this, and you master the art of true influence. Let me share with you a truth that the weak-minded fear to acknowledge. Force is the tool of the amateur. True power flows through desire. When you understand what people want, truly want, in the depths of their souls, you hold the key to their willing submission. I have watched countless leaders fail because they believed power came from the sword, from threats, from displays of might. These fools, they create resistance where none need exist. They exhaust themselves fighting battles that could have been won with a whisper, with a promise, with the careful cultivation of hope. Think of desire as a current in a river. The foolish try to dam it, to force it into submission. The wise? They study its flow. They understand its direction. Then they build channels that guide it naturally toward their goals. This is how you must approach the art of control. Consider how the greatest leaders of history operated. Did Alexander the Great solely conquer through force? No. He offered his conquered peoples a vision of a unified world of glory, of belonging to something greater than themselves. He understood that humans will march willingly toward what they desire. The modern world presents unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Social media influencers understand this intuitively. They don't force anyone to follow them. They create desire. They package themselves as the answer to people's deepest yearnings. Watch how they operate. They offer identity, belonging, the promise of transformation, and millions follow, not because they must, but because they want to. But here is the crucial element that separates the amateur from the master. You must understand that desire is hierarchical. Surface wants, money, status, pleasure, these are merely tools. The deeper desires, significance, security, legacy, these are your true instruments of control. When you master this understanding, you'll see that people will not only follow you, they will thank you for leading them. They will defend you against critics. They will recruit others to your cause. Why? Because you're not their ruler. You're the fulfillment of their desires. Let me give you a practical framework. First, observe your target carefully. What do they talk about most? What angers them? What brings light to their eyes? These are clues to their desires. Second, position yourself or your objective as the path to fulfilling these desires. If they crave respect, show how following you leads to status. If they fear insignificance, demonstrate how your path leads to meaning. The third step, and this is where true mastery reveals itself, is to make fulfilling your objectives feel like self-actualization to them. When they pursue your goals, they should feel they are becoming their best selves. This is the ultimate form of control, when serving your interests becomes integral to their identity. Remember, fear creates subjects, but desire creates zealots. Fear requires constant pressure, but desire becomes self-sustaining. A person acting from fear looks for escape. A person acting from desire looks for opportunities to go deeper. Master this principle, and you'll never need to raise your voice or show your hand. They will come to you, they will stay with you, and they will thank you for the privilege. In the grand theater of power, every person carries within them a fatal weakness, a pressure point that, when pressed, transforms them from adversary to instrument. Your task is not merely to find these weaknesses, but to master the art of exploiting them with surgical precision. Let me share with you what I learned through years of observing the powerful families of Florence. Everyone, yes, everyone, has their price. But that price isn't always measured in gold. Sometimes it's measured in validation, in recognition, in the quiet assuaging of deep-seated fears. The art of exploiting weakness begins with careful observation. Watch how they carry themselves. Listen not just to what they say, but to how they say it. What topics make their voice rise with passion? What subjects cause them to fall silent? These are the tracks that lead to their vulnerable core. Consider the common weaknesses I've observed in my studies of human nature. The proud man fears humiliation above all else. Offer him dignity, and he'll follow you anywhere. The insecure man craves validation. Give him recognition, and he'll become your most loyal servant. The greedy man isn't just hungry for wealth. He's desperate to fill an inner void. Understand this void, and you can control him with mere promises. But here's where most manipulators fail. They see weakness as a simple thing, a single button to push. The reality is far more complex. Every person is a tapestry of vulnerabilities, each thread connecting to another. Pull one thread skillfully, and the entire fabric moves to your design. Let me give you a modern example. In corporate settings, observe how ambitious executives behave. They may project strength, but watch closely. Some work excessive hours. They fear being seen as lazy. Others drop names constantly. They fear being considered insignificant. Others micromanage. They fear losing control. Each fear is a lever waiting to be pulled. The digital age has made this art both easier and more complex. Social media is a window into people's insecurities. Watch what they post, what they like, what they defend most vigorously in comments. These are not random behaviors. They are manifestations of their deepest vulnerabilities. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this art. First, categorize the weakness. Is it ego-based, fear-based, desire-based? Each category requires a different approach. Ego-based weaknesses require regular stroking. Fear-based weaknesses require you to position yourself as protection. Desire-based weaknesses require you to become the gatekeeper to fulfillment. Second, test your observations subtly. Drop a casual comment related to their suspected weakness. Watch their reaction. A slight tightening of the jaw, a nervous laugh, a sudden change of subject. These are confirmations you're on the right track. Third, build your influence gradually. Don't rush to exploit what you've learned. Let them reveal more. Let them become comfortable with you. The more they expose, the more control you gain. But here's the crucial point most miss. Never show satisfaction in finding someone's weakness. Act as though you're helping them overcome it. This is the ultimate manipulation, making them grateful for your exploitation. Remember, the greatest weapon against any person is the gap between who they are and who they pretend to be. Find this gap, and you find your point of control, but use this knowledge wisely. Like a sharp blade, it can cut the wielder if handled carelessly. Your goal isn't just to find weaknesses, it's to transform them into tools of influence. When done correctly, they won't even realize they're being controlled. They'll think you're the one person who truly understands them. Master this art, and you'll never need to raise your voice or make threats. You'll simply need to look at someone, understand their weakness, and know exactly which string to pull to make them dance to your tune. Let me share with you one of the most powerful secrets I discovered during my years advising princes. Chaos is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. When people feel secure, they think independently. When they feel uncertain, they seek guidance. This is where your power takes root. But understand this clearly. I'm not speaking of obvious destruction or visible turmoil. That's the approach of amateurs. I'm talking about something far more subtle, the art of creating controlled chaos, a state of perpetual uncertainty that makes you indispensable. Think of how nature operates during a storm. Animals don't run randomly. They seek shelter in predictable places. Humans are no different. When faced with uncertainty, they run toward whoever appears to offer stability. Your task is to become that shelter, that point of certainty in a world you've carefully made uncertain. In Florence, I watched how the most skilled manipulators operated. They never created obvious problems. Instead, they introduced subtle doubts, small uncertainties that grew naturally into larger concerns. They understood that people will accept almost any solution if they believe the alternative is chaos. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Consider how social media algorithms work. They don't force people to believe anything. They simply introduce enough conflicting information to make people doubt everything. This creates a hunger for authority, for someone to make sense of the chaos. Here's your practical framework for mastering this art. First, identify the pillars of stability in your target environment. These might be established procedures, trusted relationships, or common beliefs. Don't attack these directly, that would be too obvious. Instead, introduce small inconsistencies that make people question their reliability. Second, create what I call strategic confusion. This isn't about spreading lies. That's too risky. Instead, spread multiple versions of the truth. When people hear 3 different explanations for the same event, they become paralyzed by uncertainty. They stop trying to figure out what's true and start looking for someone to tell them what to believe. Third, position yourself as the voice of clarity. But, and this is crucial, don't offer solutions immediately. Let the confusion penetrate deeply first. Let people feel the discomfort of uncertainty. When they're properly desperate for direction, then you emerge as the source of stability. The digital age has made this easier than ever. Information overload naturally creates confusion. Your task is simply to guide this confusion toward your objectives. Plant seeds of doubt about existing systems, raise questions that have no clear answers. Create scenarios where every choice seems to have hidden consequences. But remember this vital point. Never appear to be the source of chaos. You must be seen as the one person who understands what's happening, who can make sense of the confusion. This is where true power lies, not in creating problems, but in positioning yourself as the solution. Let me give you a modern example. In corporate environments, watch how skilled managers create dependence. They don't disrupt operations directly. Instead, they gradually increase complexity in processes. They introduce new variables into decision-making. They make simple tasks require multiple approvals. Soon, nothing can happen without their guidance. The key is to make this chaos feel natural, inevitable. Like a skilled chef adding salt to a dish, you want people to know something has changed. But they shouldn't be able to identify exactly what or why. They should only know that they feel more uncertain, more in need of direction. Here's the crucial element. As you create this controlled chaos, you must maintain your own clarity of purpose. Like a captain who has deliberately sailed his ship into stormy waters, you must know exactly where you're going while everyone else is focused on staying afloat. Remember, stability makes people independent. Confusion makes them compliant. Master the art of creating controlled chaos, and you'll never need to force people to follow you. They'll beg for your guidance. Listen carefully, for I'm about to reveal one of the most crucial principles of power. Your true face must never be seen. To control others, you must become a mirror that reflects their deepest desires and beliefs. This is the art of wearing masks. In my time observing the courts of Italy, I noticed that the most powerful figures were rarely the most obvious. They were chameleons, wearing different faces for different audiences. They understood that trust is not earned through authenticity, it's earned through careful calibration of appearance. The modern world requires even greater mastery of this art. In an age where everyone claims to value authenticity, the skilled manipulator understands that this very desire for authenticity creates opportunity. People don't actually want authenticity. They want confirmation of their own beliefs and values. Let me share with you the framework for mastering this essential skill. First, understand that every interaction is a performance. When you enter a room, you're not just walking in. You're stepping onto a stage. Your words, gestures, even your silence must be carefully choreographed to match your audience's expectations. Consider how this plays out in the corporate world. The successful executive doesn't show one face to everyone. To shareholders, they project confidence and ambition. To employees, they display empathy and accessibility. To peers, they demonstrate collegiality and competence. Each mask is carefully crafted for its specific audience. But here's where most fail. They think wearing masks means being fake. This is a primitive understanding. True mastery comes from understanding that these masks are tools, like the different brushes a painter uses to create a masterpiece. Each one serves a purpose, and together they create something greater than their parts. The digital age has made this both easier and more challenging. Social media requires us to wear multiple masks simultaneously. Your LinkedIn persona must differ from your Instagram presence, yet they can't contradict each other. This requires sophisticated coordination of your various faces. Here's your tactical approach to mastering this art. Start with careful observation. Before you craft any mask, study your target audience deeply. What values do they proclaim? What beliefs do they defend? what triggers their emotional responses. These are the elements your mask must reflect. Next, build your mask layer by layer. Begin with the obvious, matching their language patterns and stated values. Then add deeper elements, subtle references to shared beliefs, careful mirroring of their worldview. The mask must feel natural, lived in. But here's the crucial element most miss. Your masks must have flaws. Perfect masks create suspicion, include carefully chosen imperfections that make you appear more human, more relatable. A moment of vulnerability here, a small mistake there. These are the details that make your performance believable. Remember, the goal isn't just to fool people, it's to make them invest in your performance. When they believe in the mask you've created, they become stakeholders in maintaining that illusion. They will defend you against critics because to admit they were fooled would damage their own self-image. Let me give you a modern example. Watch how successful politicians operate. They don't just change their message for different audiences, they change their entire persona. Their accent shifts subtly, their energy level adjusts, their choice of examples evolves, yet it's done so smoothly that each audience believes they're seeing the real person. The digital age requires even more sophisticated mask wearing. You must maintain consistent inconsistency across platforms. Your LinkedIn profile shows the professional mask, Instagram shows the personal mask, Twitter shows the thought leader mask. Each must feel authentic while serving its specific purpose. Here's the most important point. Behind these masks, maintain absolute clarity about your objectives. Like a chess master playing multiple games simultaneously, you must keep track of every move, every position, while never revealing your true strategy. Your greatest power comes when people not only believe your mask, but invest in it emotionally. When they defend you to others, when they explain away your inconsistencies, when they become advocates for your performance, that's when you know you've mastered this art. Remember, the face you show the world is not a lie. It's a tool. Master the art of wearing masks, and you'll never need to force people to trust you. They'll convince themselves to trust the reflection you've carefully crafted for them. The greatest power lies not in the words you choose, but in speaking through the language of your target's soul. When you master this art, you don't just communicate, you reshape reality itself through the careful manipulation of perception and thought. In my observations of the most skilled manipulators in Florence, I noticed something crucial. They never imposed their language on others. Instead, they became masters of linguistic mimicry, adopting and adapting the very words and phrases that held power in their target's mind. Consider this fundamental truth. Every group, every profession, every social circle has its own sacred language. These aren't just words. They're keys to identity, belonging, and belief. When you speak this language fluently, you're not just communicating, you're claiming legitimate authority within their world. Let me show you how this works in the modern context. Notice how successful cult leaders operate. They don't invent new terminology. They repurpose existing spiritual and emotional language that already holds power for their followers. They understand that familiar words carry pre-existing emotional weight. The digital age has made this art both more crucial and more complex. Every online community has its own dialect, its own memes, its own linguistic shortcuts. Master these, and you master the group's trust. But here's the sophisticated part. You must learn to speak multiple dialects simultaneously, each perfectly, calibrated for its audience. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential skill. First, become a linguistic anthropologist. Study how your targets communicate when they feel safe and understood. What phrases do they use repeatedly? What metaphors resonate with them? What words trigger emotional responses? This is your raw material. Pay special attention to their hierarchies of language. Every group has certain words that carry special weight. Buzzwords in corporate settings, technical terms in professional circles, emotional triggers in personal relationships. These are your tools of influence, but here's where most fail. They simply parrot the words without understanding the deeper context. True mastery requires you to understand why certain phrases hold power. What historical experiences? What shared beliefs? What common fears do these words tap into? The modern corporate world offers perfect examples. Notice how certain phrases, synergy, innovation, disruption, carry almost magical weight in business contexts. But using these words effectively requires understanding the hopes and fears they represent. Innovation isn't just about new ideas, it's about the fear of becoming obsolete. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating a linguistic map of your target environment. Document the common phrases, the respected terms, the forbidden words. Notice how language changes across hierarchies and situations. This is your blueprint for influence. Next, practice what I call linguistic layering. Begin with the surface level, the obvious professional or social dialect. Then add deeper layers, cultural references, shared experiences, insider terminology. Each layer increases your perceived legitimacy. But here's the crucial element. You must make their language serve your purposes. Don't just adopt their words, reshape them. Subtly redefine terms to align with your objectives. When you control the meaning of words, you control how people think about reality itself. The digital age requires even more sophisticated language manipulation. You must be able to shift between formal corporate speak, casual social media language, and technical jargon seamlessly. Each context demands its own perfectly calibrated linguistic performance. Remember this vital point. Language shapes thought, and thought shapes behavior. When you speak to people in their own linguistic code, you're not just communicating, you're programming their responses. You're installing thought patterns that will serve your objectives. Consider how skilled politicians operate. They don't just change their message for different audiences, they change their entire linguistic framework. They understand that the same concept must be expressed differently for different groups to maximize its impact. Here's the most sophisticated application. Use their language to create new thought patterns. Combine familiar phrases in novel ways. Link their existing beliefs to your desired conclusions. Make your ideas feel like natural extensions of their current thinking. The ultimate goal is this. When you speak, they should feel as though their own thoughts are being articulated perfectly. Your words should feel like their words. Your ideas should feel like their ideas. This is how you shape minds without resistance. Master this art, and you'll never need to force your ideas on others. They'll embrace them naturally, thinking them their own, never realizing that their very thoughts have been choreographed by your careful manipulation of their sacred language. Truth is a weapon, but like any weapon, its power lies not in brute force, but in precise application. The art of manipulation requires not complete deception, but the careful calibration of truth and fiction, a dance of revelation and concealment that keeps your targets perpetually off balance, yet convinced of their own understanding. In my years advising the powerful, I observed that the most effective manipulators were not outright liars. They were masters of partial truth, understanding that a foundation of accuracy makes even the boldest deceptions believable. Think of truth as the vessel that carries your manipulations into the minds of others. Let me share with you the sophisticated art of truth calibration. First, understand that people don't want pure truth. They want confirmation of their existing beliefs, wrapped in the appearance of truth. This is your opportunity. By providing carefully selected true information, you create a framework of credibility that supports your larger objectives. Consider how this operates in the modern world. Notice how skilled corporate leaders manage information. They don't lie about quarterly results. They present selective truths that support their narrative. They understand that verifiable facts create a shield behind which more subtle manipulations can operate. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential skill. Begin with what I call the truth foundation. These are verifiable facts that align with your narrative. They should be easily confirmed, preferably from multiple sources. This creates the bedrock of credibility that makes everything else possible. Next, master the art of truthful misdirection. This isn't about lying, it's about using accurate information to draw attention away from what you don't want noticed. Like a magician who shows you his empty hands while preparing the trick, you use truth to control where attention flows. But here's where sophisticated manipulation truly begins. Learn to blend truth and interpretation so seamlessly that others cannot separate them. Present facts in contexts that naturally lead to your desired conclusions. The facts themselves remain true, but their meaning becomes what you choose. The digital age has made this both easier and more complex. With information so readily available, pure deception becomes riskier. Instead, focus on becoming the trusted interpreter of overwhelming information. Don't control the facts, control their meaning. Consider how modern media operates. They rarely present outright falsehoods. Instead, they select which truths to emphasize, which contexts to highlight, which connections to draw. This is your model for sophisticated manipulation. Here's your practical approach. Start by building what I call a truth portfolio. Collect verifiable facts that support your narrative. These should be substantial enough to withstand scrutiny, but carefully chosen to lead toward your objectives. Next, practice the art of truthful omission. This isn't about lying, it's about strategic silence. What you don't say becomes as powerful as what you do say. Let others fill in the gaps with their own assumptions. But here's the crucial element. You must maintain plausible deniability at all times. Every statement should be technically true, even if the overall impression it creates serves your hidden purposes. This protects you from accusations of deception while allowing you to shape perceptions. Remember this vital point. People will fight against obvious lies, but they'll embrace comfortable half-truths. Your goal isn't to deceive them completely, it's to guide them toward deceptive conclusions while making them feel like critical thinkers. The digital age requires even more sophisticated truth manipulation. Information moves too quickly for outright deception to be sustainable. Instead, focus on becoming the trusted curator of information. Don't tell people what to think. Show them carefully selected truths that lead them to think what you want. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call truth cascades. Start with an undeniable fact, then link it to increasingly debatable interpretations. Each step feels natural because it builds on the credibility of the previous one. The ultimate goal is this. When people think back on how they arrived at their conclusions, they should see a trail of true statements. They shouldn't realize how carefully these truths were selected and arranged to lead them exactly where you wanted them to go. Master this art, and you'll never need to lie outright. The truth itself becomes your tool of manipulation, and your targets become willing participants in their own deception, believing themselves wise while following the path you've laid with carefully chosen facts. Nothing unites people more powerfully than a common enemy. But here's the sophisticated truth I learned in Florence. The enemy doesn't need to be real, it only needs to be believable. The art of using enemies to strengthen your position is perhaps the most delicate form of manipulation, requiring careful calibration of threat and opportunity. Let me share with you the deeper wisdom of this principle. In my observations of successful rulers, I noticed that those who maintained power longest weren't those who defeated their enemies. They were those who managed them, using the threat they represented to strengthen their own position. Consider this fundamental truth. People will tolerate almost any restriction, any demand, any leadership style if they believe it protects them from a greater threat. This is your opportunity. The skilled manipulator doesn't just fight enemies, they cultivate them, manage them, and most importantly, use them. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Social media, global communications, and constant connectivity make it easier than ever to create and maintain the perception of threats. But here's where sophistication matters. The threats must feel real without being so immediate that they demand direct confrontation. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential skill. First, understand the anatomy of an effective enemy. They must be powerful enough to be credible, but not so powerful that defeating them seems impossible. They must threaten values your target group holds dear. Most importantly, they must be complex enough to never be fully defeated, only contained. Through your continued leadership, consider how successful political leaders operate. They don't just identify opponents, they create narratives around them. These narratives transform specific individuals or groups into symbols of everything their supporters fear or resist. This is your model for sophisticated enemy creation. But here's where most fail. They make their enemies too obvious, too cartoonish. True mastery requires subtlety. Your enemies should feel discovered rather than declared. Let your targets connect. The dots themselves, this creates stronger belief than any direct accusation. The digital age requires even more sophisticated enemy management. Watch how successful movements operate online. They don't just attack their opponents, they create entire frameworks for understanding why these opponents threaten everything their followers value. Here's your practical approach. Start by identifying what I call threat vectors, potential sources of fear or anxiety in your target audience. These might be economic insecurity, social status threats, fear of obsolescence, or cultural changes. These are the raw materials from which you'll construct your enemies. Next, practice what I call threat amplification. This isn't about creating new threats, it's about helping people see existing threats more clearly, point out patterns, draw connections, help them understand why their intuitive fears are justified. But here's the crucial element. Your enemies must be both visible and elusive. Like a shadow on the wall, they should be clearly perceived but hard to grasp directly. This creates a perpetual state of vigilance that makes your leadership essential. Remember this vital point. The perfect enemy is one that can never be fully defeated. Think of how corruption or inefficiency serve as enemies in corporate settings. They can be fought but never completely eliminated, creating a permanent need for strong leadership. The sophisticated application requires maintaining multiple enemies at different levels. Some should be immediate and concrete, others abstract and systemic. This creates layers of threat that require different aspects of your leadership to address. Here's the most powerful technique. Position yourself not as someone who fights the enemy directly, but as someone who understands them deeply. This makes you indispensable. Others can fight, but only you truly comprehend the threat. The ultimate goal is this. Your targets should feel constantly under threat, but also constantly protected by your leadership. They should see enemies everywhere, but feel safe in following your guidance. This creates a dependency that no amount of direct control could achieve. Master this art, and you'll never need to demand loyalty. Your targets will cling to your leadership as their shield against the very threats you've helped them recognize. They'll defend you fiercely because, in their minds, defending you means defending themselves. The art of influence requires a delicate balance between visibility and shadow. In my years observing the most skilled manipulators in Florence, I discovered this crucial truth. Public rewards build loyalty, but private punishments maintain control. Let me share with you the sophisticated architecture of this principle. Consider first the nature of public praise. When you celebrate someone's actions openly, you're not just rewarding them, you're creating a performance for everyone watching. Each public recognition serves multiple purposes. It reinforces desired behavior, demonstrates your generosity, and, most importantly, shows others what they might gain through loyalty. But here's where true mastery reveals itself. The real power lies not in the praise itself, but in how you structure it. Your recognition must be specific enough to feel genuine, yet general enough that others can imagine themselves earning similar rewards. Think of praise as a spotlight that illuminates both the recipient and the path others must follow. Let me show you how this operates in the modern context. Watch how skilled corporate leaders manage their teams. They don't just offer generic congratulations. They create ceremonies of recognition. Each award, each public acknowledgement becomes a lesson in what the organization values and rewards. Now let's examine the darker art of private punishment. Here's where most leaders fail. They make their displeasure too visible, turning correction into spectacle. This is amateur work. True, power moves invisibly, correcting behavior without creating resistance or resentment. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential balance. First, develop what I call the architecture of praise. Your recognition should follow a clear pattern that others can recognize and aspire to achieve. Make the path to reward visible and seemingly achievable, while maintaining enough mystery that people never feel quite certain of their status. The digital age offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Social media platforms become your theater of recognition. A simple like, share, or public comment becomes a signal of favor that costs you nothing but carries immense psychological weight. But here's where sophisticated manipulation truly begins. Learn to layer your rewards. Surface-level recognition should be frequent and visible, creating an atmosphere of opportunity. Deeper rewards, access, influence, genuine power should be dispensed more carefully and privately. For punishments, master the art of invisible correction. When someone strays from your desired path, don't confront them directly. Instead, gradually reduce their access, limit their opportunities, or redirect resources away from their projects. Let them feel the consequences without ever seeing your hand in their fate. Consider how modern influence networks operate. Those at the top rarely need to issue direct threats or punishments. Instead, they create systems where deviation from desired behavior naturally leads to isolation and loss of opportunity. This is your model for sophisticated control. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call reward ecosystems. These are interconnected systems of recognition, opportunity, and access. Each level of reward should hint at greater possibilities ahead, maintaining constant motivation without ever fully satisfying ambition. Next, master the art of selective visibility. Some rewards should be obvious and public, serving as inspiration for others. Other benefits should be whispered about, creating an aura of mystery and desire around your inner circle. But here's the crucial element. Your punishments must never appear personal or emotional. They should feel like natural consequences of poor choices, rather than deliberate acts of retribution. This maintains your image as a fair and rational leader while still enforcing strict control. Remember this vital point. Every public reward creates an opportunity for private correction. When you praise someone openly, you gain the power to withdraw that recognition later, a powerful tool for shaping behavior without explicit threats. The digital age requires even more sophisticated reward and punishment mechanisms. Social proof, online engagement, and virtual access become currencies of favor that you can grant or withdraw with subtle precision. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call reputation cascades. A person's standing in your system should affect how others treat them, creating natural amplification of both rewards and punishments without your direct intervention. The ultimate goal is this. Your targets should always feel that success is within reach, that recognition is earned rather than granted, and that any setbacks are the result of their own choices rather than your manipulation. This creates a self-sustaining system of control that operates largely without your visible intervention. Master this art, and you'll never need to choose between being loved or feared. You'll be loved for your public generosity and respected for your invisible power, creating a perfect balance that maintains both loyalty and control. Information is not merely power, it is the foundation of all power. In my observations of the most skilled manipulators in Florence, I discovered that true control lies not in hoarding information, but in orchestrating its flow. Let me share with you the sophisticated architecture of information control that separates amateur manipulators from true masters. Consider first this fundamental truth. People don't need complete information to act. They only need enough to feel confident in their decisions. This is your opportunity. By carefully controlling what information reaches whom and when, you shape not just what people know, but how they think. The digital age has made this art both more crucial and more complex. We live in a world of information abundance, but this creates an even greater opportunity for those who understand the subtle art of information curation. Your power lies not in restricting access to information, but in becoming the trusted filter through which others understand reality. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential skill. First, understand the anatomy of information flow. Every piece of information has multiple components: the content itself, its timing, its context, and its source. Each of these elements can be adjusted to serve your purposes. Like a skilled conductor, you must learn to orchestrate all these elements simultaneously. Consider how successful corporate leaders manage information. They don't simply withhold or release data. They create entire ecosystems of information flow. Some details are shared broadly, others restricted to select groups, creating layers of access that reinforce hierarchy and control. But here's where most fail. They think information control means simple secrecy. True mastery requires understanding that information is like water. It will find its way through any crack. Your task is not to build perfect dams, but to create channels that direct its flow to serve your purposes. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for sophisticated information management. Watch how skilled politicians handle sensitive information. They don't just classify documents, they create entire narratives around why certain information must be protected, making the very act of information control seem noble rather than manipulative. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call information hierarchies. Different levels of detail should be available to different groups, creating a sense of privilege and exclusivity around access to deeper knowledge. This naturally reinforces loyalty and compliance. Next, master the art of strategic revelation. Every piece of information you release should serve multiple purposes, satisfying immediate curiosity while creating appetite for more, confirming some beliefs while subtly undermining others, appearing complete while leaving crucial gaps that only you can fill. But here's the crucial element. Your information control must appear natural and necessary rather than manipulative. People should feel that restrictions on information flow protect them rather than control them. This requires careful attention to justification and context. Remember this vital point. The most powerful form of information control isn't censorship. It's overwhelming people with carefully selected information that supports your narrative while making contrary viewpoints seem implausible or extreme. The digital age requires even more sophisticated information management. Social media, instant communication, and global connectivity make perfect secrecy impossible. Instead, focus on becoming the trusted curator of overwhelming information. Flow. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call information ecosystems. These are self-sustaining environments where people naturally share certain types of information while instinctively protecting others. Your direct intervention becomes unnecessary as social pressure maintains the boundaries you've established. Consider these advanced techniques. Use information timing to control narrative flow. The same information released at different moments can create entirely different effects. Master the art of strategic delay and accelerated revelation. Create information dependencies. Make certain knowledge prerequisites for access to other knowledge, creating natural hierarchies that reinforce your control structure. Practice what I call selective transparency. Being occasionally strategically open about certain information builds trust that makes your control of other information seem more legitimate. The ultimate goal is this: your targets should feel well informed while actually knowing only what serves your purposes. They should trust your information management, while never fully understanding its extent. They should feel privileged by their access to certain information, while never realizing how that very access shapes their perception. Master this art, and you'll never need to fight information leaks or impose obvious censorship. Your targets will naturally participate in maintaining the information structure you've created, believing it serves their interests while actually serving yours. The most powerful chains are those the prisoner believes are medals of honor. In my years studying human nature, I discovered this profound truth. When you make loyalty feel like identity, resistance becomes self-betrayal. Let me share with you the sophisticated architecture of turning allegiance into self-definition. Consider first this fundamental principle. People will fight against external control, but embrace internal conviction. Your task is not to force loyalty, but to make loyalty feel like an authentic expression of who they are. This is the difference between commanding obedience and inspiring devotion. In Florence, I observed how the most skilled manipulators operated. They didn't demand loyalty through threats or bribes. Instead, they created entire frameworks of meaning where loyalty to them became synonymous with virtue, with wisdom, with self-respect. This is your model for sophisticated control. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential art. First, understand the anatomy of identity. People define themselves through their beliefs, their associations, and their actions. Each of these elements can be carefully shaped to make loyalty feel like authentic self-expression rather than external obligation. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Watch how successful brands operate. They don't just sell products, they sell identities. People don't just buy their goods, they become Apple people or Tesla owners. This transformation of consumption into identity is your template for sophisticated manipulation. But here's where most fail. They try to force immediate, complete loyalty. True mastery requires patience. Identity transformation happens gradually through small commitments that build upon each other until the person can't imagine being anyone else. Consider how modern cult leaders operate. They don't begin with extreme demands. They start by offering identity-enhancing experiences, creating small wins, building a framework where loyalty feels like personal growth rather than submission. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call identity anchors. These are key beliefs, values, or practices that distinguish your loyal followers from others. They should feel special but achievable, exclusive but not overtly elitist. Next, master the art of progressive commitment. Each step of loyalty should feel like a natural evolution of the previous one. Like a skilled chef slowly turning up the heat, you make each new level of devotion feel like a natural progression, rather than a dramatic leap. But here's the crucial element. Your targets must believe that their loyalty comes from internal conviction rather than external pressure. They should feel that they're discovering their true selves rather than submitting to your influence. Remember this vital point. People will defend identity-based loyalty far more fiercely than rational loyalty. When someone's sense of self becomes entwined with their allegiance to you, questioning that allegiance becomes emotionally impossible. The digital age requires even more sophisticated identity manipulation. Social media platforms become stages where people perform their loyalty, reinforcing their commitment through public declaration and defense of their chosen identity. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call loyalty loops. These are self-reinforcing cycles, where each expression of loyalty strengthens the identity that prompted it, creating an ever-deepening spiral of commitment. Consider these advanced techniques. Use contrast to strengthen identity. Help your target see non-loyal others as less enlightened, less evolved, less authentic. This makes their loyalty feel like elevated consciousness rather than submission. Create identity-based language. Develop special terms, concepts, and frameworks that make insiders feel sophisticated and enlightened compared to outsiders. Practice what I call virtue framing. Make loyalty feel like moral superiority. Each act of allegiance should feel like an expression of noble character rather than mere compliance. The ultimate goal is this: your targets should feel that loyalty to you is loyalty to their best selves. Questioning you should feel like self-doubt. Opposing you should feel like self-betrayal. Remember, the strongest prison is one where the prisoners believe they hold the keys, where the walls feel like protection rather than confinement, where captivity feels like freedom. This is the ultimate achievement in the art of control, when your targets don't just accept their chains, but cherish them as symbols of their enlightenment. Master this art, and you'll never need to demand loyalty or punish betrayal. Your targets will police themselves, defending their loyalty as they would defend their very identity, never realizing that both were carefully constructed under your guidance. Let me share with you one of the most subtle and powerful principles I observed in Florence. True strength often lies in apparent weakness. The art of appearing weak when you are strong is not mere deception. It is sophisticated strategy that creates opportunities others cannot see or seize. Consider first this fundamental truth. People defend against visible power but lower their guard against perceived weakness. This is your opportunity. By carefully cultivating an appearance of vulnerability, you create spaces where your real power can operate unopposed. In my years advising princes, I noticed that those who maintained power longest weren't those who constantly displayed their strength. They were those who understood the power of strategic vulnerability, the art of appearing less capable than they truly were. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential skill. First, understand the anatomy of perceived weakness. It's not about appearing pathetic or incapable. That would destroy credibility. Instead, you want to appear just vulnerable enough to be underestimated while maintaining enough competence to be trusted. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Watch how successful tech entrepreneurs operate. They don't present themselves as all-knowing masters. Instead, they cultivate an image of the perpetual learner, the humble experimenter, all while building empires. But here's where most fail. They make their weakness too obvious, too theatrical. True mastery requires subtlety. Your vulnerability should feel authentic, your limitations natural rather than performed. Like a master martial artist who appears relaxed before striking, your apparent weakness should mask ready strength. Consider how skilled negotiators operate. They don't begin with aggressive demands. They often start by acknowledging their limitations, their need for help, creating an atmosphere where others reveal their positions while thinking they hold the advantage. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call strategic blind spots. These are areas where you deliberately appear less informed or capable than you are. Like a chess master who seems to overlook obvious moves, you're actually setting up combinations your opponents can't see. Next, master the art of selective incompetence. Choose specific areas where you'll allow others to feel superior. This builds their confidence while keeping their attention away from your true capabilities. But here's the crucial element. Your apparent weakness must be believable, yet incomplete. Like a professional poker player who occasionally shows mediocre hands, you're creating a false pattern that will pay off when the stakes are highest. Remember this vital point. People are most vulnerable when they believe they have the upper hand. By appearing weaker than you are, you encourage others to overextend themselves, revealing their own weaknesses and limitations. The digital age requires even more sophisticated performance of weakness. Social media becomes your stage for carefully curated vulnerability. Share selected struggles, admit carefully chosen limitations, all while building real power behind the scenes. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call strength shadows. These are areas where your real power operates hidden behind apparent weakness. Like a magician who draws attention to one hand while the other performs the trick, you direct focus to your limitations while your true capabilities work unobserved. Consider these advanced techniques. Use self-deprecation strategically. Acknowledge flaws before others can point them out, but choose flaws that actually mask your strengths. Practice what I call competence cloaking. Demonstrate just enough skill to be credible, while keeping your full capabilities hidden until they're needed. Master the art of strategic recovery. When you do show strength, frame it as unexpected development rather than planned revelation. This maintains your cover while capitalizing on opportunity. The ultimate goal is this. Your targets should feel confident in their superiority while being completely unaware of your true position. They should make decisions based on their perception of your weakness, never realizing they're following a script you've written. Remember, the most dangerous predator is the one that appears to be prey. When others think they're hunting you, they don't realize they're being led into a trap. This is the ultimate achievement in the art of strategic weakness, when your targets believe they're exploiting your vulnerability while actually serving your objectives. Master this art, and you'll never need to engage in direct power struggles. Your targets will defeat themselves, their own confidence becoming the weapon you use against them, never realizing that their sense of superiority was your most carefully crafted tool. Unity is the enemy of control. In my observations of the most skilled manipulators in Florence, I discovered this crucial truth. Those who rule longest are those who master the art of division. Let me share with you the sophisticated architecture of creating and managing beneficial discord. Consider first this fundamental principle. People united are powerful, but people divided are manageable. Your task is not to create obvious conflict, but to cultivate subtle divisions that make unified resistance impossible while appearing to promote harmony. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Social media, corporate structures, and global connectivity create infinite possibilities for subtle division. But here's where sophistication matters. The divisions you create must feel natural, inevitable, even necessary to those experiencing them. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential art. First, understand the anatomy of division. Every group has natural fault lines, differences in status, belief, ambition, or fear. These aren't flaws to be corrected, but tools to be utilized. Like a jeweler studying a diamond before cutting, you must learn to see where clean breaks can be made. Watch how skilled corporate leaders manage their organizations. They don't create obvious rivalries between departments. Instead, they establish healthy competition and performance metrics that naturally pit groups against each other while maintaining a veneer of collaboration. But here's where most fail. They create divisions that are too obvious, too hostile. True mastery requires subtlety. Your divisions should feel like natural categorizations, logical separations, reasonable differences in approach or philosophy. Consider how modern political strategists operate. They don't just attack opponents, they create entire frameworks for understanding why different groups within society have naturally opposing interests. This is your model for sophisticated division. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call separation frameworks. These are systems of categorization that seem neutral, but naturally create distance between groups. Think of how corporations divide employees into levels, or how societies create classes, each division feeling natural while serving control. Next, master the art of competitive alignment. Create goals that force groups to compete for limited resources while maintaining an overall narrative of cooperation. Like players on a sports team competing for starting positions, each division should feel like it serves a greater unity. But here's the crucial element. Your divisions must appear to solve problems rather than create them. Each separation should feel like a natural solution to existing tensions rather than an imposed structure. Remember this vital point. People will accept and even defend divisions that they believe protect their interests. Your task is to make each group feel that separation from others is a form of advantage or protection. The digital age requires even more sophisticated division management. Watch how social media naturally creates echo chambers and identity groups. Your task is not to fight this tendency, but to guide it, creating divisions that serve your purposes while appearing to emerge naturally. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call division cascades. These are hierarchical systems where each level is slightly divided from those above and below, creating a structure where unified resistance becomes geometrically impossible. Consider these advanced techniques. Use selective rewards to reinforce divisions. Recognize and reward behaviors that maintain separation while appearing to celebrate individual achievement. Create specialized language and practices for different groups. This naturally reduces communication and understanding between divisions while appearing to promote expertise and efficiency. Practice what I call unity framing. Present each division as a necessary part of a greater whole, making the very act of separation feel like a form of cooperation. The ultimate goal is this: your targets should see their divisions as natural, beneficial, even essential to their success. They should defend their separated state as fiercely as they once might have defended unity. Remember, a united group can resist, but divided groups must compete. When people are busy competing with each other, they have neither the time nor the capability to challenge your authority. This is the ultimate achievement in the art of division, when your targets actively maintain their own separation while believing it serves their interests. Master this art, and you'll never need to fear unified opposition. Your targets will maintain their own divisions, seeing them as natural and necessary, never realizing that their very separation is the foundation of your control. The art of control reaches its highest form when you can keep people satisfied with small victories while maintaining your grip on true power. In my observations of the most skilled manipulators in Florence, I discovered this crucial truth. People who feel they are winning rarely question the game itself. Consider first this fundamental principle. Humans are motivated more by the perception of progress than by actual advancement. Your task is not to give real power, but to create an elaborate architecture of achievement that keeps people striving while never threatening your control. In the courts of Italy, I watched how the most skilled princes managed their ambitious subordinates. They didn't simply suppress ambition, they channeled it into carefully constructed competitions for honors, titles, and small authorities. Each victory felt significant to the recipient while changing nothing fundamental about the power structure. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential art. First, understand the anatomy of perceived victory. A satisfying win has several components. It must feel earned, it must be visible to others, and it must hint at greater opportunities ahead. Like a master game designer, you must create challenges that feel meaningful while serving your larger strategy. The modern corporate world offers perfect examples of this principle. Watch how organizations use titles, project leadership roles, and special assignments to create a sense of advancement. People will work extraordinarily hard for the title of senior or lead while actual power remains firmly centralized. But here's where most fail. They make their victories too empty or too substantial. True mastery requires careful calibration. Each win must carry enough weight to motivate, but not enough to truly empower. Like a skilled casino operator, you must ensure your players win just often enough to keep playing. Consider how modern video games maintain engagement. They provide constant small achievements, visible progress markers, and the promise of greater rewards ahead. This is your model for sophisticated motivation management. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call victory hierarchies. These are layered systems of achievements where each level feels significant while actually serving to reinforce existing power structures. Think of corporate ladder rungs, social media influence metrics, or academic titles. Next, master the art of reward scaling. Early victories should come quickly, creating momentum and investment. As people progress, space the wins further apart while increasing their perceived significance. This creates deeper engagement while managing expectations. But here's the crucial element. Your system of victories must feel fair and merit-based. People will accept limitations if they believe they're experiencing failures of effort rather than systemic constraints. Like a master illusionist, you must make the boundaries of possible achievement appear natural rather than imposed. Remember this vital point. The most effective control system is one where people believe they're making meaningful progress while actually running in place. Your task is to create enough motion to satisfy ambition without allowing real movement in power dynamics. The digital age requires even more sophisticated victory management. Social media metrics, online achievements, and virtual status markers create endless opportunities for satisfying but ultimately meaningless wins. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call achievement ecosystems. These are self-contained environments where people can experience constant progress while remaining within carefully defined limits. Like a skilled animal trainer, you create an enriched environment that satisfies natural drives while maintaining complete control. Consider these advanced techniques. Use visible metrics to drive behavior. People will chase numbers, followers, likes, performance scores, without questioning whether these measurements have real significance. Create competitive hierarchies that pit people against each other rather than against the system. Let them fight for relative position while accepting the absolute boundaries of their influence. Practice what I call aspirational anchoring. Always keep a next level visible, but just out of reach, ensuring continuous effort without actual threat to your control. The ultimate goal is this. Your targets should feel they're making genuine progress while actually reinforcing their own limitations. They should celebrate victories that serve your interests, never realizing that their very success maintains their subordination. Remember, the most effective cage is one where the prisoner feels like a climber. When people believe they're ascending a ladder of achievement, they rarely question who owns the ladder or where it actually leads. This is the ultimate achievement in the art of control, when your targets enthusiastically pursue victories that strengthen rather than challenge your power. Master this art, and you'll never need to suppress ambition or fear rebellion. Your targets will channel their energy into pursuing the victories you've designed, celebrating achievements that maintain rather than threaten your control, never realizing that their very success serves your dominance. The greatest power lies not in what you show, but in what you keep hidden. In my years studying the most skilled manipulators of Florence, I discovered this essential truth. Your true objectives must remain as invisible as the strings that move a puppet. Let me share with you the sophisticated art of concealing your endgame. Consider first this fundamental principle. People resist obvious manipulation, but embrace hidden influence. Your task is not merely to conceal your goals, but to create an entire false narrative that makes your true objectives invisible while making your apparent aims seem natural and beneficial. In the courts of Italy, I observed how the most skilled players operated. They never revealed their ultimate ambitions. Instead, they created elaborate displays of lesser objectives, each one carefully designed to distract from their true purpose while simultaneously serving it. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential art. First, understand the anatomy of concealment. True hiding isn't about silence or secrecy. It's about creating such compelling alternative explanations that no one thinks to look deeper. Like a master magician, Your most important trick is making people forget that tricks exist. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Watch how skilled corporate strategists operate. They don't just hide their plans, they create entire narratives about transparency and openness that actually serve to obscure their deeper objectives. But here's where most fail. They either conceal too much, creating suspicion, or reveal too much, losing advantage. True mastery requires what I call strategic transparency, showing enough to create trust while keeping crucial elements hidden. Consider how sophisticated political operators work. They don't just hide their agenda, they create multiple, plausible objectives, each one serving as a potential explanation for their actions while the true goal remains invisible. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call objective layers. These are nested goals, each one appearing to be the complete story while actually serving as cover for deeper aims. Like an onion, each layer peeled away should reveal another seemingly complete explanation. Next, master the art of misdirection through truth. Share real objectives that, while genuine, are not your primary goal. This creates credibility while directing attention away from your true end game. Like a skilled poker player, you show enough real cards to make your bluffs believable. But here's the crucial element. Your visible objectives must be compelling enough to satisfy curiosity while bland enough to discourage deeper investigation. Like a safe house hiding in plain sight, they should be interesting enough to be believable, but boring enough to avoid scrutiny. Remember this vital point. People will stop looking for explanations once they believe they've found one that makes sense. Your task is to provide satisfying but incomplete explanations that discourage further questioning. The digital age requires even more sophisticated objective concealment. Social media and corporate communications create constant demand for narrative. Your task is to feed this hunger with carefully crafted stories that hide rather than reveal your true purpose. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call objective ecosystems. These are interconnected sets of goals and explanations that support and validate each other while obscuring your real aims. Like a master novelist, you create a world so compelling that no one questions whether there's another story behind it. Consider these advanced techniques. Use multiple timelines to your advantage. Let people think they've discovered your long-term plans while your actual objectives operate on a different schedule entirely. Create decoy objectives that attract attention and scrutiny, while your real goals advance unnoticed. Like a magician's assistant, these should be flashy enough to draw focus while substantial enough to withstand examination. Practice what I call revelation management. Occasionally expose lesser secrets to maintain credibility and satisfy the desire for insider knowledge while deeper truths remain hidden. The ultimate goal is this. Your targets should feel they fully understand your objectives while actually seeing only what you want them to see. They should believe they're acting with complete knowledge while serving purposes they cannot imagine. Remember, the perfect plan is one whose true nature remains invisible even after it succeeds. When people think they understand your game, they stop looking for the real one. This is the ultimate achievement in the art of concealment. When your targets believe they've seen behind the curtain while actually watching another performance entirely. Master this art, and you'll never need to worry about resistance to your true objectives. Your targets will be so busy responding to your apparent goals that your real aims will advance unopposed, hidden behind a veil of plausible alternatives and compelling decoys. The ultimate form of power lies not in force or authority, but in necessity. In my studies of the most enduring rulers in Florence, I discovered this crucial truth. True control comes not from making people obey you, but from making your presence essential to their existence. Let me share with you the sophisticated art of becoming irreplaceable. Consider first this fundamental principle. People resist direct control, but embrace necessary dependence. Your task is not to demand obedience, but to weave yourself so thoroughly into the fabric of their lives that your removal would cause collapse. Like air or water, you must become an element they cannot live without. In the courts of Italy, I watched how the most skilled manipulators operated. They didn't just accumulate power, they created systems of interdependence where their presence became crucial to everyone's success and security. This is your model for sophisticated control. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this. Essential art. First, understand the anatomy of necessity. True irreplaceability has multiple layers: practical necessity, skills and resources; emotional necessity, security and validation; and systemic necessity, structural dependence. Like a master architect, you must build all these layers simultaneously. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Watch how tech companies create ecosystems that users can't easily leave. They understand that true power lies not in forcing people to stay, but in making departure inconvenient or costly. But here's where most fail. They focus on creating obvious forms of dependence that people naturally resist. True mastery requires subtlety. Your targets should feel empowered by their connection to you, not trapped by it. Consider how skilled corporate leaders operate. They don't just control resources or information, they become the nexus through which opportunities flow, the interpreter of complex realities, the source of validation and advancement. This is your template for sophisticated necessity creation. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call dependency networks. These are interconnected systems where your presence serves as a crucial linking element. Like a keystone in an arch, your removal would cause the entire structure to fail. Next, master the art of selective expertise. Develop knowledge and capabilities that are both vital and difficult to replicate. But, and this is crucial, make this expertise feel collaborative rather than dominating. People should see you as enhancing their capabilities, not replacing them. But here's the crucial element. Your necessity must feel like an asset rather than a burden. Like electricity in a modern home, your presence should be something people are grateful for rather than resentful of. Remember this vital point: the strongest chains are those that people hold on to willingly. Your targets should fear your absence more than they resent your presence. The digital age requires even more sophisticated necessity creation. Social media platforms, professional networks, and digital ecosystems offer endless opportunities to become an essential part of people's personal and professional lives. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call necessity cascades. These are layered systems where each level of dependence naturally creates and reinforces others. Like a complex ecosystem, removing you would trigger multiple forms of collapse simultaneously. Consider these advanced techniques. Build information monopolies. Become the primary source of crucial knowledge or interpretation, but do it so naturally that people don't realize their dependence on your perspective. Create relationship networks where you serve as the central hub. Make your presence crucial to maintaining connections that people value. Practice what I call capability grafting. Integrate your skills and resources so thoroughly into others' operations that separating them becomes practically impossible. The ultimate goal is this: your target should see their dependence on you as a form of empowerment rather than limitation. They should defend your position as fiercely as they defend their own interests. Remember, the perfect form of control is one where people fight to maintain their own dependence. When your targets actively work to keep you in position, when they resist changes that might reduce your influence, when they see threats to your power as threats to their own stability, that's when you've achieved true irreplaceability. Masters this art, and you'll never need to demand loyalty or enforce compliance. Your targets will maintain your position themselves, seeing their dependence on you as a source of strength rather than weakness, never realizing that their very success has become inseparable from your control. The most sophisticated form of manipulation lies not in exploiting weaknesses, but in turning strengths against themselves. In my studies of power in Florence, I discovered this profound truth. A person's virtues, properly leveraged, can become more effective tools of control than their vices. Let me share with you the art of weaponizing virtue. Consider first this fundamental principle. People guard against their known weaknesses, but leave their virtues undefended. Your task is not to attack their flaws, but to turn their best qualities into instruments of your will. Like a martial artist using an opponent's strength against them, you must make their virtues serve your purposes. In the courts of Italy, I observed how the most skilled manipulators operated. They didn't just exploit greed or fear. They transformed honor into obligation, courage into recklessness, wisdom into paralysis. This is your model for sophisticated control. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential art. First, understand the anatomy of virtue. Every positive quality has a shadow side, a way it can be turned against itself. Loyalty can become binding chains. Integrity can become rigid limitation. Empathy can become exploitable weakness. Like a master chemist, you must understand how to transform these elements. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Watch how skilled marketers operate. They don't appeal to vice. They transform the desire to be healthy, ethical, or responsible into consumption behaviors. This is your template for sophisticated virtue manipulation. But here's where most fail. They try to corrupt virtues directly, creating resistance. True mastery requires subtlety. You must make virtuous behavior naturally serve your ends while allowing people to maintain their self-image as moral actors. Consider how modern corporate culture operates. Companies don't ask people to abandon their values. They reframe excessive work as dedication, competitive behavior as excellence, and conformity as team spirit. This is your model for transforming virtues into tools. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call virtue traps. These are situations where people's positive qualities naturally lead them into positions of vulnerability or service to your interests. Like a spider's web, these should feel natural and comfortable until it's too late to escape. Next, master the art of moral reframing. Learn to present your objectives in terms that appeal to people's highest values. The same action can be resistance or loyalty, selfishness or self-care, depending on how you frame it. But here's the crucial element. Your targets must believe they're acting virtuously while serving your interests. Like a skilled theologian, you must make service to your goals feel like moral achievement. Remember this vital point. People will fight against anything that challenges their virtues, but embrace anything that seems to affirm them. Your task is to make compliance feel like ethical behavior. The digital age requires even more sophisticated virtue manipulation. Social media has created entire frameworks of public virtue signaling that can be turned to your advantage. Your task is to align your objectives with these displays of moral worth. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call virtue cascades. These are situations where one virtuous action naturally leads to another, each step feeling morally correct while advancing your agenda. Like a moral maze, every righteous choice should lead deeper into your control. Consider these advanced techniques. Use integrity as a chain. Help people make public commitments to principles that serve your interests, knowing their own integrity will force them to follow through. Transform empathy into obligation. Create situations where compassion naturally leads to actions that benefit your agenda. Practice what I call moral momentum. Once people start down a path of virtuous behavior that serves you, make each step feel like a natural moral progression. The ultimate goal is this. Your targets should feel they're becoming better people by serving your interests. Their virtues should become the very chains that bind them to your will, all while they believe they're acting from their highest principles. Remember, the perfect form of control is one where resistance feels immoral. When your targets believe that opposing you would mean betraying their own values, when their virtues have become the very tools of their servitude, that's when you've achieved true mastery. Master this art, and you'll never need to appeal to vice or corruption. Your targets will bind themselves to your will through their own highest qualities, never realizing that their very virtues have become the instruments of their control. The ultimate achievement in the art of control is not to make people follow your commands, but to make them believe they dance of their own accord. In my final observations of power in Florence, I discovered this profound truth: perfect manipulation becomes invisible, leaving only the illusion of free will. Let me share with you the sophisticated art of vanishing the strings that control your puppets. Consider first this fundamental principle. People resist visible control, but embrace invisible guidance. Your task is not merely to hide your influence, but to make it feel like natural inclination. Like gravity, your power should be everywhere present, but nowhere seen. In the courts of Italy, I watched how the most skilled manipulators achieved this ultimate form of control. They didn't just conceal their methods, they transformed them into seemingly natural desires and decisions in their targets. This is your model for sophisticated invisibility. Here's your tactical framework for mastering this essential art. First, understand the anatomy of invisible control. True power doesn't push or pull. It shapes the environment so thoroughly that every free choice leads where you desire. Like a master gardener, you don't force the plant to grow. You create conditions where it can only grow as you wish. The modern world offers unprecedented opportunities for this approach. Watch how social media platforms operate. They don't force behavior. They create environments where desired actions feel natural and rewarding. This is your template for sophisticated environmental control. But here's where most fail. They try to maintain too much direct control. True mastery requires letting go of obvious influence while maintaining perfect environmental manipulation. Like a master climatologist, you don't control each cloud. You control the conditions that create weather patterns. Consider how skilled marketers operate in the digital age. They don't just sell products, they create entire cultural contexts where certain choices feel inevitable. This is your model for making control feel like natural inclination. Here's your practical approach. Start by creating what I call choice architectures. These are carefully designed environments where all paths lead to your desired outcomes. Like a maze where every route reaches the same destination, you give the appearance of freedom while maintaining perfect control. Next, master the art of invisible influence. Learn to shape preferences so thoroughly that your targets believe their choices originate from their own desires. Like a master chef adding invisible ingredients, your influence should be felt in the result but never tasted directly. But here's the crucial element. Your targets must feel not just free, but empowered. They should believe they're expressing their authentic selves while acting exactly as you desire. Like a master hypnotist, you must make your suggestions feel like personal insights. Remember this vital point: the perfect puppet master disappears, leaving only dancers who believe in their own choreography. Your success is measured not by how well you can pull strings, but by how confidently your puppets move when they think the strings are gone. The digital age requires even more sophisticated invisibility. Social networks, recommendation algorithms, and curated content create perfect opportunities for invisible guidance. Your task is to become the unseen architect of seemingly organic choices. Here's the most sophisticated application. Create what I call freedom cascades. These are sequences of apparently independent choices that naturally flow toward your objectives. Like a river finding its way to the sea, each decision should feel natural while following your predetermined course. Consider these advanced techniques. Build invisible frameworks that make certain choices feel natural and others feel awkward or difficult. Like a skilled architect, You should shape behavior through structure rather than rules. Create social environments where desired behaviors are rewarded through seemingly organic peer approval. Like a master sociologist, you should make compliance feel like social success. Practice what I call desire engineering. Shape what people want so thoroughly that you never need to control what they do. Like a master advertiser, make your goals feel like personal aspirations. The ultimate goal is this: your targets should feel more free, more authentic, more self-directed than ever, while acting precisely as you desire. They should celebrate their autonomy while following your design, never seeing the invisible architecture of their choices. Remember, the perfect form of control is one where the controlled become passionate advocates for their own containment. When your targets defend their choices as expressions of freedom, when they fight to maintain the very systems that control them, when they believe that following your path is the ultimate form of self-expression, that's when you've achieved true invisible mastery. Master this art, and you'll never need to exercise obvious control again. Your targets will maintain their own chains, celebrate their own confinement, and passionately defend the very system that controls them, all while believing they've never been more free.